We are back. Giants baseball, past, present, and future. I'm Ralph Tyko with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and the co-host of the show is Michael Duca. How are you, sir?
I'm delightful. How about yourself?
Oh, good. I'm ready to talk a little ball with you, buddy. You're a Giant fan from way back, and I'm a Giant fan from even further back when they were in New York. And when they were in New York, their main announcer was a fellow by the name of Russ Hodges. And when they came out to California and San Francisco, Russ Hodges went with them, and it was joined by Lon Simmons. And I'm going to give you a bit of a trivia question. The third person in the group was Bill Thompson, as I'm sure you remember, in the booth. But there was a fourth, and he was just breaking into broadcasting in the Bay Area, and I'm wondering if you remember who he is, Michael Duca.
Could that have been Bill King?
It certainly could have been. And Bill King went from there, basically fourth man in the booth. If I'm not mistaken, I think Bill Thompson was with them initially as the third person. But he was either the fourth or third person in the booth, went on to an iconic career as a broadcaster in basketball with the Warriors, football with the Raiders, and I believe it was his third best sport as a broadcaster. Bill King made the Hall of Fame, the Baseball Hall of Fame recently. And you've been sitting in press boxes for a long time, Michael. Give me some Bill King memories. Tell me what you
all my Bill King memories are going to be athletics based rather than Giants based. Regrettably, my memory just does not go so well back to the time when I was 8 and 9 years old. But I think my
the show sometimes has to go across the bay because the Giants and A's are so closely intertwined for so many different reasons, Vita Blue notwithstanding, that
you have
got to talk. And am I right? Lon Simmons announced for both the Giants and A's.
And Dusty Baker played for both and managed one.
Right, exactly. Bob Melvin was a terrific catcher with the Giants in '87. Goes on to manage.
They're both, and Dusty, he also played for both and managed the other.
Yes. And Alvin Dark, of course. Another name, unless you mentioned him, and I just missed it. I'm coming off a week. Don't ever try to remove wax from your ears. That's my tip to you and everybody else. I was virtually deaf for about 2 days. Literally could not hear shit. So if I miss something, it's coming back. If I miss something, bear with me. And the solution is salt water. Just keep flushing with salt water, and you don't have to get the wax out. You just have to get it lodged in a position where it's not interfering with your hearing. A little off the subject stuff. That trivia that's good for you. Minutia.
It's always good to improve your knowledge, terminology
of anything, no matter what. Yes, absolutely. You can't learn too much, and something like that's going to come in handy. If you're ever tempted to clean out your good ear first when you're waxing, don't do that. Do it the other way around and one at a time. What a life.
Well, I just clap my hands and I wax off. It's okay.
Okay, it works that way in your little fantasy world, don't you? It doesn't. Nice. So, I got to know, and this is a very, very subjective conversation, because we're going to talk. I mentioned a few announcers. Bill King, congratulations going into the Hall of Fame.
Oh, absolutely. I actually had a Bill King story for you. We never quite got to.
Let's do that now.
It's my favorite Bill King story because, of course, it also involves the great Lon Simmons. Lon, who blew out his arm as a pitching prospect for the Phillies and turned to broadcasting, and who I still, even posthumously, stand in awe of Lon Simmons for having actually broadcast on the radio, mind you, a golf tournament.
Whoa.
Just concept is enough to fry my mind. But the great Lon Simmons and Bill King were discussing a young, very talented ball player who had just come up recently with the Oakland Athletics by the name of Jose Canseco. And Lon was referring to him repeatedly as Canseco, and Bill finally interrupted him and said, "You know, Lon, he's Hispanic. That's pronounced Canseco. So he took it with his usual aplomb, and as everyone remembers, Bill had innings 7, 8, and 9. Lon did innings 4, 5, and 6. And when it came time for the 7th inning interchange, Bill, who was prone to, shall we say, eating unusual things during the course of a game, it was not at all atypical for Bill to eat a bowl of popcorn covered with chili and raw onions in the booth.
In his Speedo outfit, his Speedo swimsuit.
In Speedo swimsuit and flip-flops, and I wasn't going to get too personal here, but
I have a vision that I can't get out of my mind.
Exactly. Well, along with the Rasputin beard, it just made for quite a. But you've got, when you're eating foods like that, shall we say, that are high in fiber, there's a natural.
To piss people off.
Well, there's a natural byproduct of that, and Bill was out answering nature's call when the 7th inning returned, and Lon had already handed out. He said, Bill will be back to take you the rest of the way after these words. And, we had 2 minutes of commercials, and we come back, and we hear Lon's voice again. He said, "I know I promised you that Bill would be back to take you the rest of the way, but he's been unavoidably detained in the con." That story.
You say you worship him. We both lived in Alameda, and I went out once shopping at Safeway on Bay Farm Island, and there, shopping in the same Safeway, is Lon Simmons. And I am
Yes, Lon used to live in Brittany Bay.
Right, yes. But I think his daughter was out on Bay Farm, whatever it was. I tried to go up to him just to pay homage. I'm a 50-year-old man, and the words couldn't talk. I sounded like the guy was. If you listen to games, 150 games a year, in those days, 154 games a year, year after year after year, announcers become like part of your family, like a voice in your family. And he was so dry and down to earth. What a wonderful man. And Lon Simmons has to go down as my favorite all-time announcer.
Well, I will tell you that when we finish the show today, I'm having lunch with my dearest friend who still lives in Alameda and who was Lon's realtor. Lon attended my friend's daughter's wedding in Hawaii after Lon had moved to Hawaii for his retirement. And I had the opportunity to get to know Lon in perhaps a more congenial setting than the produce aisle at the Safeway on Bay Farm Island. And I always found him to be a remarkably approachable person, if you know what I mean, Ralph. Just don't say.
Human. Yeah, he just didn't look down upon anybody. He'd look you in the eye. Incredibly modest, incredibly self-effacing.
Yes.
It just
almost to a fault.
Came through as the kind of guy you just want to have as your next door neighbor, is all. And Hank was that way. Hank Greenwald was just special along those lines. But there was an underrated announcer by a lot of folks that the Giants had who I thought was almost equally as charming as those two, and that was Ron Fairley. Did you have any memories of sharing time with him?
Oh, heavens, yes. I remember the very first words that Ron Fairley ever said on the Giants radio network. It was the opening broadcast of spring training. And Ron, for all of his USC education, and he's a very bright guy, Ron was given to malaprops over
I was going to
over
say,
and
yes.
over. And this was one of the better ones. Is, well, welcome to another season of Giants baseball. We're here in Scottsdale Stadium under a sky full of bright blue clouds.
That's his introduction
to Neptune?
to Giants. That's his introduction to the Giants fans as coming as a Dodger. That's what he really assimilated.
He did, and he did a nice job of it. He knew he was given to those malaprops, and he laughed about them. You know, he about 3 sentences further in, he said, "We'll be back with the Angels lineup." Oops, I knew I was going to do that. Good to get it out of the way before anybody was really listening. Because he had come to the Giants from being an Angels broadcaster. And my favorite, constantly repeated Fairley malapropism is that ball is fouled back over the tops of our head.
Over the tops of our heads.
The tops of our head. And I just, all I could do was imagine a brush cut with 3 or 4 dreidels spinning.
That's great.
Jim Korak has a phrase like that they tease about all the time, and now he actually jokes about it on the air. I keep telling him, Ken, lights don't take full effect. The darkness does. The lights are the same amount of bright, whether it's daytime or nighttime.
Very good points. Very good points. Ken says, and no matter what the time of the day, no matter how long it took, no matter what the inning, something will happen where Ken will go, and just like that, the A's take the lead, and just like that, things change. It's just, I love the way he says that, and just like that, like there's a sudden change. I love baseball on the radio. I could listen, and we've talked about this with the MLB thing. You just push a button, and you've got any game, any time. It's on live. Home announcers, away announcers. We're in a wonderful age. wonderful age. I want to throw one more name, announcer at you, who came to the Giants from the Mets. And he was more of a football announcer, a classy, I think he did Notre Dame, Lindsey Nelson. And I don't know if you have memories of him.
Proud graduate of the University of Tennessee, and after whom the University of Tennessee Journalism School was named. Yes, Lindsey Nelson was a wonderful man.
Did you get to know him personally at all?
Very little. My involvement with the team in the 80s was extremely minimal. I didn't really establish myself in the media realm until after Lindsey was gone. I got to know Ted Robinson very well, but
another real pro, Ted Robinson.
Folks who come through Giants podcast, but it's really pretty amazing. You talk about somebody you think is an underrated announcer. I would put Dwayne Kuiper in that category. I think Dwayne Kuiper is an outstanding play-by-play announcer, considering that he came from baseball where most of those guys wind up being analysts or color guys. Dwayne is adapted to the play-by-play role, I think, very, very well.
Right. The team of Krukow and Kuiper will go down as an iconic combination. What makes them so good together?
They genuinely like each other. They spend as much time together away from the microphone as they possibly can. And they are different people in the sense that Dwayne a dairy farm in Wisconsin outside of Milwaukee, and his stepson from Southern California grew up in San Gabriel.
Right.
Actually, the next high school over from the one from which I graduated, and we are contemporaries.
I thought he was a Stockton person.
No, he went to San Gabriel High School. He was a Matador. I went to Pasadena. I was a Bulldog, and we faced each other, or our schools faced each other on the gridiron. We did not face each other in baseball.
Very cool. Do you have were you contemporaries in
Sure. He graduated a year after I did.
And was he upcoming? Did he have the reputation then as someone who is a number one prospect gonna make it?
We knew. Well, yeah. You heard about him as having been recruited, and you knew. He plays this down. Anybody who got recruited to go to Cal Poly San Luis was not just an athlete; they were also a scholar.
Right. That's where I get the idea about Stockton in Cal Poly. Eddie LeBaron's school was
the toughest of the California schools to get into.
Yes.
Cal Poly San Luis Obispo.
Did you have aspirations of broadcasting at one time? You have great pipes.
I absolutely had aspirations of broadcasting at one time. I'm not sure I've totally given them up. Here I am doing something like that.
Okay. Michael, you're breaking up a little bit. You still with me? Would you do me a favor? We're going to take a little pause. I'm going to push the button. You're going to call back like you did last week on a better line.
Okay.
Can you do that?
Yes, I'll be right back.
Okay, beautiful, because I want to get the best of you, and I don't want it missed. So everybody out there, hang tough. We'll be right back at you. We're back. Michael Duca, a new instrument of talking into, a microphone and a telephone, both combined together. How do you sound now, Michael?
I don't know. You have to tell me.
Yeah, you sound much better. You sound much better. All right. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Let's talk about your broadcasting aspirations. What would you do to define yourself if you were hired as a major league broadcaster?
What would I do to define myself? Well, the first thing I would do is go out and purchase an egg timer.
Like Red Barber did, huh?
Exactly. Because first of all, if you don't learn from the best, you're a fool. And I've had the opportunity to be around the best.
And yet no one...
next to Doug
No one
Greenball.
really does that consistently. No one every so often when that egg timer runs out goes, if you're joining us, we're here in the catbird seat. This is the old redhead, Red Baba, and the score is the Brooklyn 6 and the Philadelphians 4. We're in the third inning, and Richie Ashburn steps to the plate. That's off the top of my head. No one could do a Red Barber. Red Barber was...
No. Yeah, I would agree with you. Now I can do a pass.
Right. Did I lose you again? Uh-oh. Mr. Duca, we are having technical difficulties. The Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, comfortably difficulted. What the hell did that mean? Michael, are you coming back? Are you there? Okay, I will do a little filler. It is the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. This is Giants Baseball, past, present, future. I'm Ralph Tyko, Comfortably Zoned Radio Network's weakest link, basically. Michael's the co-host, or basically the co-host now of Giants Baseball. He is an official scorer with the Giants and the A's. He is hired by Major League Baseball, has an incredible amount of journalistic experience, and wrote a terrific book along with Mr. Tebow. I think it's John Tebow. This is off the top of my head, that we'll talk about when Michael comes back. So once again, I'm going to push the button of pause and wait for Michael to get back on the line. Here we go. Button being pushed. He's back, Michael Duca.
He's back despite technical difficulties. So where did I fade away?
We were talking about announcers and, oh yes, how would you define yourself? We're talking about the old redhead, Red Barber.
I would certainly define myself as, I would say that my job, the eyes and ears of those whose eyes and ears are not in the
Beautiful.
You have to remember what people want to know, and mostly what they want to know is what's happening. And if nothing's happening, I think it's okay to say nothing's happening on the radio. On television, it kind of speaks for itself. You have enough visuals to keep people entertained and occupied between words. But on the radio, you have to paint what Chick Hearn always used to call a word's eye view. And, I think that it's important that that as an announcer you be as natural as possible. If you have a terribly corny sense of humor, that's part of your personality, and you should allow it to show. I don't think anyone could adopt an on-the-air persona. If you come across as who you are because it is who you are, you never have to remember how you're supposed to be. You just are.
Michael, can you tell me as a fan, as you speaking as an insider, how much editorial process the team puts in to the announcers, how much they restrict the announcers, or do they have to play Homer? How is that done from team to team? And maybe you could talk about the Giants in particular. Are they given a free rein to announce it as journalists any way they want?
I think so. I have not ever asked anybody if they have felt any sense of restriction. They're obviously, that they are employed by the team, and so there's undoubtedly a line that one should not cross. But I go back to a memory of mine and another. The San Francisco Giants move that often gets forgotten. At the end of an absolutely dismal season, I want to say maybe 1984, I remember sitting home from the very last game of the season and listening to about a 45-minute deconstruction of how utterly awful was that year by Al Michaels. And you have a lot of respect for and sees the team perform more, really.
Right.
He sees the team probably than the general manager does. And, in fact, I'm sure he does, because the general manager travels to look at other teams and other ball players. I think a team does a disservice if they try to manipulate the information, because I think the reality is right there on ESPN and the 10 o'clock news every night. If you're playing street baseball, sugar in the world to coat that. It didn't stop Charlie Finley from trying to do it, but the current Giants ownership as seeing that as being necessary. I think they understand that there's work. Every team has work. You can justify really work.
Right. So
things better.
You haven't heard of anything specific where any team or the Giants in particular have come down and just put their thumb down for one reason or another?
I am not aware of it.
Okay.
I have heard some issues with some teams.
Okay. I'm going to skip around a little bit because we just touched on a human being whose friendship we shared, Leonard Koppett, who was a delightful human being. And you got to know him a little bit. As a matter of fact, you said something on last week's show, or a week or two ago maybe, about being an official scorer and getting tutelage from Leonard Koppett. That really stood out to me because that was so true. Repeat what he told you.
Leonard basically said, by the time you get to be a major league official scorer, you've seen the game players have. Trust what you see. Trust your instincts. And when the ball leaves at 89% of the time before it gets to the fielder, you have already made a judgment of he should make that play or he shouldn't make that play. Trust that.
Good. You spent, I'm sure, hours in the press box with Mr. Koppett. I don't remember who it was that jokingly said, "Leonard, good to see you. I see you brought your bag of decimal points with you." He was a statistician's...
I don't know that either, but I bet it was Dan Daly.
Oh, okay. All right. I don't remember. Yeah. I don't remember who it was. It was a great line. And I remember growing up as a kid, Leonard Schechter and Leonard Koppett both shared bylines on the Post, the New York Post. and they were just contrasting styles. One wrote more about the human nature of the game, and one broke it down statistically with great merit, and that was Mr. Koppett. He did an article once that has appeared in many publications. It's comparing Mantle and Mays. I don't know if you're familiar with that article.
I am not.
Oh,
I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, please do. It just breaks it down so very well. And another person I miss, Mortality. I'm not liking you very much.
Yeah.
I know it's the way of things, but we seem to lose folks that are very important to us and transcend sports, let me tell you. Anyway,
Leonard was a delightful guy, and as you say, he chose a seat in the press box that was directly behind me for the last 4 or 5 years of his life. And,
oh wow!
Would every so often offer just a sentence or two of pithiness to re-ground the conversation that was going on around him. I think I told you that, when I made some comment about, how exciting it was to be present to see the first man ever of 500 steals and 500 home runs in a career, Leonard smiled and said he's the same guy who had 499 and 5.
That's a good, very good, same person. Hey, Leonard was a two-sports Hall of Famer. He was a basketball Hall of Famer and a baseball Hall of Famer. And I was fortunate enough, I did a cable network show called Sports from the Top of the Hill, and I did it in the 90s, in the mid-90s, and it was at Cal State Hayward, and I brought back, here are the folks that I brought in on this little series: Hank Sauer, Leonard Koppett, Charlie Fox, Charlie Silvera, and Joe DeMaestri. And Leonard gave me like an hour and a half on the air of just talking, and we didn't even get to basketball. He was just so wonderfully open, and it was the time when Michael Jordan, I think it must have been 95, was playing baseball with the White Sox.
Birmingham White Sox.
Yes, and Tito Francona was his manager. And I remember asking Leonard in the interview what he thought. He says, sure, give him the chance. Let him play. Why not? That was his philosophy on that.
There were a couple of names that you mentioned on that list that were evocative for me. Of course, lots of opportunities to chat with Leonard, and used to be an absolute regular around the press box, now approaching 90 and too infirm to come out of the house anymore, but Charlie is a dear, dear friend.
What a guy.
I miss him.
How nice a man.
He's... And Charlie was a direct connection to another one of the nicest guys who ever donned a baseball uniform or sat behind a microphone, and that was his lifelong friend, Jerry Coleman, who is the other guy who's in 2 Halls of Fame.
Ooh, did not realize that.
And the second Hall of Fame that Jerry is in is the one that he is most proud of, because Jerry was the one and only Major League Baseball player to see combat action in 2 separate wars.
Whoa! And you would think Ted Williams, but Ted Williams was an instructor in the
That's
second.
right. He was an instructor in Korea, in World War II, and he flew in Korea.
Okay.
So,
or was it the other way around, Michael?
It might have been the other way around. He may have been an instructor by Korea. I was not there.
Nor was I. I got out of that one. I was 4F. They classified that I wasn't born, so it was. But I was born for Korea, and that was. And we're still we haven't settled that Korean thing yet.
There's always going to be an issue if you don't have a peace treaty. And there's never been a peace treaty. We are in the midst of a 70-year-long ceasefire.
That's all it was.
A lot of people don't realize that there's never been a peace treaty signed. Back towards baseball, just to finish the thought, Terry was more proud of the second Hall of Fame to which he belonged than the one in Cooperstown. The other one is the United States Marine Corps Hall of Fame.
Oh, wow. Wow. He's a delightful guy, and speaking of malaprops, he had 1 or 2 himself.
Oh, I could do an entire show on Colemanisms. I don't know. You have to pick your favorite amongst them. McCovey hits a deep drive to center field. Winfield goes back. He hits his head on the wall, and it's rolling back towards the infield. There's a line drive to left field, and Pete Rose has started another hit streak. Boy, if he'd done that yesterday, they'd be throwing babies out of the upper deck. And things are getting a little sticky here. I see Ray Jones is throwing up down to the bullpen.
Yes. But a terrific second baseman himself.
Yes.
What a fielder.
A World Series MVP. Nobody remembers that. A World Series MVP.
That I don't remember. I remember Billy Martin shining in the World Series, and those two competing for the second base job. I guess Martin got it because Jerry Coleman went back to Korea. But I didn't know that he was an MVP in the World Series. Very interesting. Good fielder and played on that dynasty, that last Yankee dynasty.
Charlie Silvera are 2 of 6 people who ever lived who were on 5 consecutive World Championship teams.
Well, I think there were 13 of them.
Who were on 5? I don't believe so.
13 with those that
Charlie told me
went
were
from
only
49 to 53.
all the way through.
Rizzuto was one. I think Gene Woodling was another one. Gil McDougall came up later. There were the pitchers, Rashi, Reynolds, and Lopez.
All of those guys made it through 54?
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. And because Rashi was traded.
Look, Charlie's memory sometimes gets a little fuzzy, but it
was fuzzy because it was 13, and that's the book we talked about in '95 when I had Charlie Silvera come in.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, Charlie showed me the single most unique artifact I've ever seen. He went to Dan Topping in 1954, and he said, Dan, I don't want another goddamn World Series ring. I have one. My wife has one. Her mother has one. My mother has one. I've run out of people. Give me something else this year. And the Yankees did. They gave him a velvet-lined sterling silver cigarette box with the actual engraved signatures of every member of the team and front office. Dan Topping and Del Webb's signatures even on it. It is utterly unique. There was only one made.
Oh, wow. How cool that is. You know, it comes back to the poor man is alive. His best friends, Coleman, Yogi Berra, gone. It just says something about our punishments, I guess, for living. I can't imagine.
I will. Something that my late father told me when he hit 91 or so. He said, "When I was his mother passed away when he was 8. His dad only spoke Italian and died when my dad wasn't all that old. He was only about 30. And he said he spent his entire childhood praying that he would be around to take care of his brothers and sisters. And he said, you have to be careful what you pray for because sometimes you get it. And he was the last one left. And he said, being the last one left in the family sounds like a good idea until it happens to you.
Yeah. In any family, extended family, baseball family, whatever, well, we ended on a real high note, didn't we, Mr. Dozo?
Well, we are definitely not the last members of our family standing at this point, so we're okay.
Okay, that's the good point. Thank you, sir. I enjoy chatting with you, and I want to implore you just to keep on keeping on. I'll say that to the audience as well. Come back next week, and we'll do it again. And thank you again. I really enjoy your company.
Well, we have not run out of pavement on memory lane. We've still got a bit to traverse, so I'll be back.
We just hit a crack of it. We could talk for years on the air, but
now don't go scaring the audience away.
I won't. But let me tell you something. We're also in this little podcast field. We're going to talk about the future as well. So next week, let's both study up and look at the Giants' up-and-coming guys. Let's analyze their farm system a little bit and see what we can expect for the future. How about that? We'll make a fun game out of that.
And I have an assignment. All right.
Yeah, I have one too because I got to keep up with you. You're a smart guy. I can't just throw this one against the wall, and I gotta be listening to what you say. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
See you next week.
That. All right, take care.
Be well. Thanks, everybody. Come back. We'll be here. Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Giants baseball, past, present, and future. Adios.